They have announced, the GOP, an impeachment inquiry is about to begin. So this means the Republicans will begin to ask the question of whether or not we should impeach Joe Biden. I know I've ragged on the Republicans quite a bit for this, like just vote to impeach. However, I don't want to get ahead of myself. I actually think this might be, as much as I want more direct action and they can do other things, this is probably the right path to go. They're going to now have committee hearings. They're going to have more, they should supposedly now enact more subpoena power and then put together all of these different documents and different bits of evidence and then have a formal vote. I can respect that. I think the strategy here is to launch the impeachment proceedings and have the inquiry throughout the election year. Makes sense. I guess I'd prefer it not to be political. Based on my principles, I'd say we have more than enough evidence to impeach the guy. But the corporate press, of course, is lying about everything. And, we're going to call them out for it. In other big news, Owen Shroyer's here and he's going to jail. Owen's going to prison. And Owen actually has the sentencing document right here. It is, I think it's egregious. I think it's obvious that they're targeting Owen over his political speech. And the document backs this up. We talked about it quite a bit over the past few days, but now with the sentence officially coming in at 60 days, I think when you look at the story, it is beyond a reasonable doubt that the courts are trying to silence political speech, as we've seen with a bunch of these different prosecutions. So we're going to talk about that and a bunch of other stories, of course. Before we do, my friends, head over to timcast.com and click Timcast IRL X Miami to pick up your tickets to our Miami event. We're going to be there October 6th, 6 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. We got Patrick Bet-David, Donald Trump Jr., Matt Gaetz, me and Luke Rutkowski plus Ian will be there. It's going to be a blast. We actually have a bunch of other people who are showing up to hang out, so you may see people that you're a big fan of. I'm not going to say who. Once we get a definitive list of special guests who will be hanging out and they're cool with it, we'll announce that as well. But there's a bunch of really cool people who are showing up. So smash that like button. Subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends, click join us and become a member at timcast.com to watch the uncensored show tonight, which I imagine is going to be a whole lot of fun. And I hereby revoke authorization to timcast.com to any federal agent of the government. And if you do access my servers, that will be in violation of the CFAA. Okay, I'm kidding. You guys can watch. Fine, whatever. Okay, but joining us tonight to talk about this and a whole lot more, we have Monica Crowley.
Hi. It's so good to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thanks for coming. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, no, it's great. So I have been very honored to work for not one, but two American presidents, Richard Nixon during his last years and President Trump as Assistant Secretary of the Treasury. And I always like to joke, man, do I know how to pick them or what? Only the most controversial presidents for me, okay? No Grover Cleveland's for Monica. Long media career, New York Times bestselling author, and now the host of the Monica Crowley podcast.
Wow, this is awesome. It's great to have you. And,
Thank
you. You were telling us just before the show about talking with Trump about what he didn't realize coming into the presidency. So I definitely think we'll get into all that stuff as we talk about impeachment and Trump 2024, but should be fun. Thanks for hanging out.
Great.
And
you.
Owen Shroyer was in town, so we forced him to come here.
Well, the stars aligned perfectly for me to make the first appearance on Timcast tonight. Tim and his crew put forth a lot of effort to make sure this happened. I'm pretty much going to go 2 or 3 days without sleep, but when you're at war for the country and free speech, I guess that's what it takes. So glad to be here tonight, and I know we got a lot of exciting things and important things to talk about.
Right on. Thanks for coming.
Hello, I am Phil Labonte. I'm the lead singer of All That Remains, anti-communist and counter-revolutionary. I'm extremely excited to be here tonight to talk to Owen and Monica. Thank you, guys. And
yes, I'm sitting here too. It's a pleasure to meet you, man. Yourself as well, Monica. Let's just jump into it.
Here's the big news for the day. We got this from the New York Times, and I love the way they headlined this. McCarthy facing an ouster and a shutdown. Orders an impeachment inquiry. I just want to pause real quick because the news is McCarthy actually made a very succinct and precise statement about why there should be an inquiry into the potential high crimes and misdemeanors, abuse of power of President Joe Biden. I was actually fairly impressed. And for no reason, the New York Times includes this additional information. Notice the commas. How about a headline that says McCarthy orders an impeachment inquiry and nothing else? Yeah, that's the appropriate news headline. But of course, they want to add nonsensical context to alter your perception on what is actually happening. They're trying to make it seem like there's no evidence. They're trying to make it seem like he's only doing this because he's facing serious pressure. But the reality is, we have the evidence. Most of you have already seen it. We'll go over a lot of it and talk about it. But here's the news from the New York Times. They say, McCarthy's decision to unilaterally announce an impeachment investigation with no formal House vote entwined the Republican investigations into Mr. Biden with the funding fight that is rattling the Capitol. It appeared to be a bid to quell a brewing rebellion among ultra-conservative critics who have accused the speaker of not taking a hard enough line on spending, blah, 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 blah. I just got to say, look, we're at the point where people have access to information outside of these corporate sources. And I do think when you look at even CNN's polling on this, they found 55% of people believe that Joe Biden was behaving inappropriately as it pertained to Burisma and the holding money. People are waking up to what's going on. So Joe Biden should be impeached. He should have been impeached. He never should have been elected, in my opinion. But if he gets elected because people voted to elect him, fine. But I actually think Joe Biden should have been convicted of criminal offenses before he even got into office. Granted, maybe we didn't know enough, fine. But when Trump started to look into these crimes, what happens? They impeach him. Curious what you guys think.
Yeah, no, 100%. And the line now, and it was trending all day on Twitter, the phrase "without evidence." So they've all gotten their marching orders now that this is how they're going to cast this process, that it's illegitimate. They've gone after Donald Trump. They've gone after all of us for being illegitimate voters, illegitimate president. Actually, Joe Biden is the actual illegitimate president. But this is how they go. And the marching orders have gone out that there is no evidence. There are mountains of evidence. This man, not just from when he was vice president, but from when he was a sitting U.S. senator all the way through the vice presidency. And you know what, guys? Nobody is talking about what he might be doing now. I mean, he is the sitting president of the United States, and nobody is talking about what he could be doing now. Also tease out the other point about this. People have been so focused on the fact that he's gotten a ton of money, tens of millions of dollars, enriching himself and his family by using Hunter Biden as the bag man. But nobody takes it to the next logical point, which is the reason that we are going to have this impeachment, which is that Joe Biden took these tens of millions of dollars to change American policy. That is the two direct things that the founders actually put in the Constitution defined for impeachment: bribery and treason and other crimes and misdemeanors. But if we can prove, and I think we certainly can because we have tons of evidence here, that he engaged in both actions, this man needs to be removed from office like yesterday.
I have a question for you then. What do you think happens should there be an impeachment, right? The House finds that there is an impeachment that needs to happen, goes to the Senate, and the Senate finds him not guilty because of the
Senate is going to find him not guilty because we don't control that body. So they're going to, acquit him on that, and he will continue, assuming he's able to physically. But that's not really the point, right? The point, like the Democrats did with Trump. Democrats with Trump had no evidence. Trump did nothing wrong. They rammed through 2 fake impeachments without a vote. These are the new rules now, right?
Yeah.
So now we're going to follow those rules, and all of a sudden the Democrats have a huge problem with it. But the point is to air out all of this evidence, regardless of how it ends in the Senate. You go and do the right thing. The House has all of this evidence. Impeach the man, have it as part of the historical record, get all of the evidence on the record, and then allow the American people to see it.
Just one thing, I don't want to come off like I was saying that I don't want to give you the impression that I'm against the idea, because that's not the case at all. But my concern is, I feel like you're correct about the evidence. It's overwhelming. It is clear that Hunter Biden was a bagman. It is clear that he was giving money to his father because of the things that his father could do. I don't see a whole lot of wiggle room in when you present the evidence, just the stuff that I've seen personally. That being said, like, what does that say for the U.S.? Like the Donald Trump stuff, everyone knew that it was kind of a hack, right? It was just a garbage job because they didn't like him. And it wasn't actually that he did significant things. The idea of Hunter Biden having receipts of actual wire transfers, actually sending money to his dad, and all the stuff with it.
Emails saying he's doing it.
100%.
Yes.
So when it comes out, and then when that comes out, and then we have a situation where he does not get found guilty, because that's what I strongly believe wouldn't happen. What does that say for the country? And I'm looking for more of an opinion than an actual,
Let it be said. It says a lot. It's look, with the indictments of Donald Trump, with everything we're seeing in the January 6th case, and everything we don't see with the riots at the White House on May 29th or the riots in D.C. on January 20th, 2017. I think everyone understands. And there was, I can't remember the order in which the pundits said this, but first it was that there is a two-tiered justice system, that there's, for the left and the right. And then someone else, it may have been Jack Posobiec, said it's actually three-tier. It's if you're a regular person, they don't care about you. They might just throw you in the jail, ignore you. You're nothing. If you're a privileged elite establishment, you get protection and ignored. And if you're a Trump supporter, now they're going to throw the book at you every chance they get.
Well, there was one person that called out the phony Trump impeachment right to their face. And I think the government is still pursuing legal action against that individual. He may or may not be on this show right now in a purple shirt. But, Monica, you might want to watch your step. Saying Joe Biden is illegitimately elected might be a criminal offense now. So we've got to be be very careful. Well, look, we all know, as you said, Tim, that these establishment corporate rags always want to deflect with the headline. And they're well aware that most people don't read past the headline. And so if they can try to manipulate your viewpoint via a distractive headline or a deceiving headline, then we know they're going to do that. But I think in this case, whether intentionally or not, the New York Times is actually right. I think Kevin McCarthy knows that Republican voters are sick of him. I think Kevin McCarthy knows that the House Republicans, specifically out of the Freedom Caucus, are sick of him. This is a guy that fought tooth and nail to be the speaker. I mean, he sat up there and took the slings and arrows because he wanted to be the speaker. He made a bunch of promises to House Republicans and Republican voters, and he hasn't delivered on any of them. And so right now, Matt Gaetz is putting the heat on Speaker McCarthy. And I actually think the New York Times is right. I think Kevin McCarthy knows that if he doesn't do something, even if it's just lip service, then Republican voters and Republicans in the House are going to realize this guy's an empty suit.
I'm afraid of the lip service, not because like there's some kind of negative repercussions from the lip service, but I'm just so tired of ineffective and incompetent Republicans not doing things, being in positions of power and not using power. The Democrats have no issue, no hesitation exercising power when they get into,
I would say, abusing power.
Fair enough. And Republicans are terrified of it. They're afraid of being called names.
Because they're more comfortable in the minority, right? I mean, they like being sort of on defense and they can fundraise off of it. They're more comfortable in those positions. But why is Matt Gaetz the only member of Congress who took to the floor today, as far as I saw, and delivered a barn burner of a speech against Kevin McCarthy? Look, we are in a war for the future of the country. We can't have these weak-kneed Republicans just being the loyal opposition anymore. Yeah. And the base gets it. I think a growing number of the American people understand that the hour is very late in the country. We're at a tipping point here. We've been under assault by these globalists, but certainly by the global Marxist revolution for almost a century, starting in the 1930s. And they've been chipping away at our Constitution.
That's what I'm talking about.
Let's cut to the core.
I've been talking about this a long time, okay? And we are now at the tipping point. And there's no more, to quote the Predator movie, we ain't got time to bleed.
That's right.
Okay? And so if you're in a position of authority in the GOP or any place in this movement and you don't get it or you're in on it with the other side, you got to go. We got to bounce you. And that includes the Speaker of the House if necessary.
No more political clubs, right? And that seems to be the case in DC. Everybody wants to be in the club and they want to get along, and they don't want, whether it's a Democrat or Republican, kind of looking at them with the stink eye when they show up at the parties or when they show up in the Hamptons. And even more to Matt Gaetz' credit, last week he actually gave himself a bit of a tongue lashing when he came out and he said, you know what? I haven't done enough. You're right. I haven't done enough. I need to do more. And he comes out and he gives that speech today. And I think I really do believe that's why Kevin McCarthy, he knows that he can't win in the Senate. He knows he can't win in the Senate. Why would McCarthy be doing this now? What new evidence is there against Joe and Hunter Biden that we haven't had for years? We've had the evidence for years. What is he sitting on?
They're waiting for the election. I think that's the only thing that makes sense. If they launch all of this stuff right away, as soon as they take the House, then they fire off their shot, and that's it. I think if you look at why they're not, look, for you, it's been 2.5 years, and now all of a sudden they're bringing this case up. It's hitting the news. The Democrats know the game they're playing as well, wait until 2024 to start making big arrests, raiding houses, arresting people, targeting Trump. I think McCarthy is probably like, for one, obviously too many of the Democrats just roll over and let things, they're Democrats go on the speed, Republicans or Democrats go on the speed limit. But I think a lot of this might be, if we do act too quickly, then we fizzle out too quickly. And so a slow buildup might actually work better politically.
Let's get a little wonky with this. What would the political strategy be then heading into 2024? Because at this point, I don't see why the Republicans wouldn't want Joe Biden to run, right? I mean, you have all the dirt on him. He's not just not popular, he's unpopular.
Yeah.
Even Democrat voters, the vast majority, say, we'll take anyone but Biden. Give me a ham sandwich, and I'll take that over Joe Biden. So to me, if you're the Republicans, you want Joe Biden to run. Yeah. He can't even campaign. And now you're dealing with a situation, Cornel West is going to take votes away from the Democrat base. If Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who's calling out the corrupt process within the Democrat Party, decides to run third party, that's going to take even more votes away from the Democrats. Now, unfortunately, they can't rally behind Donald Trump, but we can get over that as Republican voters or even independent voters that are going to vote for Trump now. I just don't even think it's a good political strategy to me. I say let Joe Biden run. Make him campaign.
That's all I want.
But they're not going to convict him. So they're trying to taint as much of his presidency and his campaign as possible.
And get it on the historical record, too.
Yep.
I think a couple of points about this. I think Republicans are always so careful, as they should be, because the propaganda press will, rip them apart if they don't go about this the right way. So they are trying to build a case, unlike the Democrats with Trump, who just went in and railroaded him, and they continue to try to railroad him, and they don't have any facts, and it doesn't matter, right? So I do think they're trying to build a case. The other thing is, when I was flying here today, guys from New York, on my plane behind me was a Republican member of Congress who shall go nameless. And this member of Congress recognized me. I recognized them. And this person is sort of establishment, I wouldn't say swamp, but sort of establishment trying to
I don't know.
Can I start guessing?
Yeah, I think I've got some
When are we going to play bingo here?
My lips are sealed. There's
a lot of Congress people, though.
So
I think I know who it is, though.
We deboard the plane, and I went up to this member, and this member recognized me, and we start talking, and I said, I understand that you were trending on Twitter today. You probably guess who it might be. But in any case, we had a conversation about the impeachment, and this member of Congress indicated that at least they would like to see the impeachment done for sure, but wrapped up by like December 31st. So they don't want to drag it through an election year because at least the establishment members don't want it to flick back on them, right? Like they don't want the blowback. They think the press is going to jump all over them with this illegitimate impeachment and so on. So they want a lot of time and distance between the end of the impeachment, no conviction in the Senate, but an impeachment, and election day in November. At least that seemed to be the establishment point of view.
Well, let's ask John Fetterman what he thinks of this impeachment and this video that's going tremendously viral. All right, let me just play for you guys.
About this news that Speaker McCarthy has formally launched an impeachment or has said he's going to.
Oh my God, really? Oh my gosh, it's devastating. Ooh, don't do it. Please don't do it. Oh no.
So we're gonna run back to the office, but
I got to be honest, while I see a lot of people on the right sharing this video being shocked that Fetterman had this reaction to it, that's going to work really, really well for the leftist base, for the leftist populists. They're going to look at that as the reason why they like Fetterman. And they obviously Democrats don't want his stroke, right? His affliction,
or who knows what.
Yeah, I mean, right. But they also want to downplay that. They want to play up, don't attack someone who's suffering a medical issue and things like that. But the reason they like the guy is that they're trying to be like Trump. They know that Trump is reaching out to these middle American working class union guys that see that like more of what he does. I'll put it this way. If you're a dude hanging out by the grill with your buddies in the backyard having a beer, you're closer to Trump, I know it sounds shocking, than you are Joe Biden. Joe Biden is so far removed with his Rehoboth Beach, Delaware upbringing and whatever he was doing. I don't know, riding horses and sitting at the pool, having kids stroke his legs. Donald Trump, while born rich and wealthy and all that, is closer. I'm not saying he's close, but he's closer to a dude who would hang out and have a beer with you. They need Fetterman, and they need this kind of behavior that comes off as like more down to earth.
Well, and you just saw Trump at the Iowa football game, Iowa versus Iowa State. I mean, he was like he fit right in. It was like he was the grandfather of the godfather of the fraternity. I mean,
well done steak with ketchup.
Yeah, I mean, he held the burger up for everybody to see. But, you know, let's be clear why that resonates with Democrats. For the same reason when Donald Trump hoists a hamburger in the air or says that he wants to have a retribution tour, that resonates with his voters. That behavior from Fetterman resonates with Democrat voters.
Absolutely.
You can show a Democrat all the videos of Joe Biden literally grabbing children on C-SPAN, grabbing their crotches, stroking their hair. Yeah, that's your response. What, you show that to a Democrat?
Oh, no, dude. When we have liberal voters in here, and actually, you guys have seen the video of there was a radio host asking the journalist about Hunter Biden and the corruption. The journalist is like, I don't know what you're talking about. And he's like, Hunter Biden said my dad takes my salary. And he goes, I don't know about that. It's like,
that was Philip Bump.
Philip Bump
Yes.
of the Washington Post.
Yeah, that's supposed to be someone that's serious.
Walks off the set.
Yes.
Unreal.
So when we have these people on, liberal voters, and they come on rarely, and they make it like, how come you won't have us on, Tim? I'm like, bro, y'all are always invited. You just don't show up. When I pull up an article and I'm like, here's an article that says Hunter Biden contacted DC to get prosecutor fired. They go, that's a conspiracy theory.
Washington Post.
No, I'm like, this is the New York Times. Here's the New York Times saying Merrick Garland was pressured by the White House to prosecute Donald Trump specifically because Joe Biden told his staff he wanted it done. And they're like, that's a conspiracy.
Here's the text.
The
Here's
New
the
York
emails.
Times?
Literally, you have his laptop. You have his text.
I don't have the New York Times pulled up.
Propaganda works.
Oh, here we go. I have the
Very well.
I have the New York Times pulled up. The New York Times.
Jesus.
Garland faces growing pressure as January 6th investigation widens. Hey, you don't like the New York Times? I'm not the biggest fan either, but they outright say in this, let me, is this one right here? Here we go. The Attorney General's deliberative approach, blah, 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 has come to frustrate Democrat allies of the White House. And at times, Biden himself, as recently as late last year, Biden confided to his inner circle that he believed Trump was a threat to democracy and should be prosecuted, according to two people familiar with the comment. It goes on to say that Joe Biden has privately said he wanted Garland to act less like a ponderous judge and more like a prosecutor who was willing to take decisive action over the events of January 6th. So when you have Joe Biden saying to his staff, I want Trump prosecuted, why won't Merrick Garland be more decisive? Do you think Merrick Garland doesn't get the message? So when we're talking about who should be impeached, if your argument is to me, and this is what they say, they come on the show and they're like, Donald Trump was digging up dirt on his political opponent. And I'm like, Joe Biden ordered the prosecution of his political opponent. That's a conspiracy theory. No, it's in the New York Times. Doesn't matter. They don't care.
Well, you had the one lady from New York who ran her campaign on, I'm going to get Donald Trump. That was her entire campaign. And she got elected. And then I don't know what, I think she was the one that ended up indicting him out of New York. Her campaign was elect me, I'll indict Trump.
Wasn't Fani Willis the same thing?
Fani Willis was the same. Letitia James in New York.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah. But look, the left gets away with this.
By the way, Letitia James came after us at InfoWars and Alex Jones, too.
Yeah, that's right.
Out
that's
of New York?
Yeah.
How? Defamation or something?
Well, look, I don't know if I'm at liberty to discuss this, but let's just say Letitia James did everything she could to try to hurt Alex Jones and InfoWars.
Of course.
That's crazy, man.
But look, the left gets away with this because, number one, they control everything now. Long march through the institutions over many decades. And number two, they've got the protection of the press. So when you have the protection of the press, you can literally get away with anything, including murder.
I agree, but I think we're winning. And I think you look at the math and the economics of the matter. You look at Target, their stock dropping, Bud Light dropping. You look at Disney and Netflix losing subscribers. You look at Sound of Freedom, Richmond, north of Richmond. You look at even Yingling getting support. Anyone other than Bud Light. Those numbers mean more than those are hard numbers.
You just talked about a new beer that's about to come out.
Oh no, this is out already. We have some Conservative Dad's ultra right beer, Seth Weathers,
and that's going to sell because people want to support something that isn't globalist corporate propaganda.
Right. You have apparently now they're shipping them by the truckload, by massive semis full. They're selling so much of this beer, and everyone's launching their own thing. When Aunt Jemima gets pulled from the brand, Terrence Williams says, screw that. And he makes a replacement. And it's one of the coolest things ever. They removed Aunt Jemima from the pancake things. And it is one of the most shockingly offensive things ever to me that they were like, oh, you can't have a black woman on a pancake box. And I'm like, what? Why?
Like the most popular pancakes of all time.
Of all time.
Get rid of her.
So Terrence Williams says, I'm going to put my face on the box then. And I'll say that. I say, okay, I'm going to buy from him. Granted, I don't eat a lot of pancakes. Too much sugar, right? I cut that out. But we have a bunch of cousin teas right now. And it's these woke companies need to be told. And they're told simply by not buying their products. So while we can look at the political stuff that's going on, I think what they're doing to you, Owen, I think what they're doing to the J6ers, I think what they're doing to Trump shows how panicked and desperate they are. New Mexico shows how panicked and desperate they are. They have been trying to ban guns for how long? But if you look at the list of states that are going constitutional carry, more than half the country, I think we're up to like 26 or 27 states now. So what does the panicked and desperate Democrat governor do? Decree, I hereby decree. And what happens? People walk outside with their guns, say, nope, it's not working. So what are they going to do? Well, when a person is drowning, they thrash about violently. And as they start to lose power, which is clear from 2016, Hillary Clinton wasn't supposed to lose. The fact that she did shows the establishment power is waning. These corrupt establishment shills inherited a machine they did not know how to operate, and they are losing control of it. And the people are starting to take control back. They're freaking out because of it, and it's going to get nasty. But in the end, I think we win. And that's why I keep telling everybody, people say this stuff like, they're talking about, what do we do now to resist? I'm like, it's really, really simple. You knock on doors, you get the word out, you only buy products from companies that support your values, and you vote for Donald Trump in 2024.
Well, and think about how politicians and even people in the political realm operate, right? It's all about votes or popularity. And so when the New Mexico governor comes out and makes maybe the most anti-Second Amendment decision or decree of all time, what happens? Far left Democrat Ted Lieu has to disavow it. David Hogg, the most anti-Second Amendment activist out there, has to disavow it. So even they know, like, hey, we better not go along with this because this is not popular right now.
Everything we're seeing is acts of desperation. But I want to clarify, because people keep saying, like, how could they have control of the institutions but we be winning? Because let's say that they have 70% of institutional power, and in 6 months they'll have 67%. That means we are winning. They are being pushed back and pushed out of these institutions. For too long, most people have sat by and let them do these things. And even during the I don't want to say the peak, but even in the trenches of the culture war in, say, 2018-19 with Trump and Russiagate, people were not doing these boycotts or boycotts. And in fact, I was kind of like, I don't know, it seems weird to me. I don't want to be like that. Now we're at the point where we're creating our own chocolate. Well, Daily Wire has their own chocolate brand, and it's got better ingredients. The Daily Wire, Jeremy's chocolate has like 4 ingredients and no preservative garbage. It's like cocoa butter, sugar, and milk or something.
And
Amazing.
Isn't that part of the populist movement too? It's not just a political thing. It's even a health thing.
Yeah.
There's
Seed
more
oils.
to it. Seed oils, all this other stuff. But here's an interesting phenomenon that has been happening really, I would say post-Obama more than anything. Maybe it's liberals being anti-war to being pro-war, but even that's a little more nuanced. Here's something that's direct and right in your face. It used to be that the First Amendment and the Second Amendment were huge liberal causes. Liberals were always going to go to bat for the First Amendment. Liberals were always going to go to bat for the Second Amendment. Where that's not a liberal belief anymore. Now, if you want to be a modern day American liberal progressive Democrat, you're anti-free speech, you're anti-Second Amendment. I mean, that's been the phenomenon that we've witnessed.
It's a complete inversion, right? What we've seen over the last 2 decades is a complete inversion, because what you're describing, Owen, is classical liberalism, small L liberalism, right? What we have now is a wholesale takeover of the Democratic Party by the Marxists, by the communists.
They call themselves progressives because they call themselves progressives because it's a subversive ideology.
Which is another inverse, because they're really regressive.
Exactly.
That's exactly right. And I have always said that communism never dies. It just gets rebranded.
Yeah.
So what you have now is a rebranding of communism to make it sound sort of 21st century and hip and something that's going to attract younger voters, etc. And it has been working. But Tim, to your point, conservatives for a long time were anti-boycott. Oh, we can't do it because they'll do it to us and we're better than that, and all of that moral superiority nonsense, right? But now we're starting to feel our own power because so many of us realize we're at a tipping point and there is no alternative other than losing our country. So we're willing to put our disposable income where it counts, and it's all organic. It's not like the left, doing their astroturfing nonsense.
Wait, you mean they don't actually like Dylan Mulvaney? Come on.
But it's actually organic, right? So what we've seen with Disney, with Target, with a whole range of companies now has been an organic choice by millions of us to say, we're going to put our money where our mouth is now, and we're going to make a proactive choice.
This is a point that I've made a couple times, and I completely agree with you, but there is an inherent vulnerability in liberalism, and that's that liberals listen to their opponents or they believe that open dialogue is important. You believe in the First Amendment. That means you have to hear the opponents out, people that you're arguing with. People on the left, people that are not liberals, they do not have the desire.
Clarify, you mean like classical and philosophical liberal?
Yes.
Like
When I'm talking about liberals, I'm talking about classical liberals. When I'm talking about people that they don't agree with, when I talk about progressives, I'm talking about people that don't have an enlightenment, don't have respect for the Enlightenment. They don't believe that you can actually come to an agreement based on truth and honesty. They believe that it's all about perspective, and so it all boils down to power. And you have to have liberals understand that when you're dealing with people that don't respect things like honesty, that don't respect the freedom of speech because they don't believe that there is a freedom, they don't believe that there is a truth. So if these people are approaching it without a respect for honesty and open dialogue and stuff, they're all playing a power game. I think that the classical liberals in the US have finally started to realize that inherent vulnerability is there. And so you can be liberal with other liberals and approach other liberals and expect an honest dialogue. But you have to first ascertain if they're actually liberals. If they're commies, they're going to lie to you. Commies always lie.
I think one of the big turning points for conservatives was that, for the longest time, like you were pointing this out, Owen, liberals actually defended the First Amendment. But something happened to the modern left. We used to say that Democrats were left and Republicans were right. We still kind of say that, but now there's leftists. And if you look at the Pew research, which is really interesting, it shows that the GOP in this country moves like 1 degree to the right and the left goes like 4 degrees to the left. So what happens is people like me, I'm like moderate, fairly independent, slightly left-leaning on a lot of issues, but I believe in the Constitution. I believe in the constitutional republic. I believe in free speech.
Common sense.
Common sense. I care about what's true or not. So while, a few years ago, my attitude on guns was like, well, there's probably some reasonable things. I don't want to infringe on anyone's rights, but I think we can come to some reasonable conclusions on how we can make things better and safer. And then I had some logical arguments with people who are more learned than I. And I said, that is the correct moral approach. And that is, while I certainly think people shouldn't have nuclear weapons, as long as the Constitution protects the right to do so, we have to agree on our based on our rules of how we live in a society to change the Constitution before we can restrict people's rights. They don't do that. My point is, over time, I'm in a position where I'm like, I grew up pro-choice, that within a certain amount of time, women can deal with their health care, their bodies. That means that there's going to be bad things that happen. Elective abortion, I think, is horrible. But it means there's going to be women suffering from very serious afflictions, and they need to go to their doctor, and having paperwork and submitting approval and stuff is kind of scary. But what happens now? Now we get Democrats who are just saying you can abort a baby at any time for no reason at all. And I'm like, well, that's completely psychotic. I used to be with the Democrats on their positions, but they decided to be psychopaths. Now you get more disaffected liberals, defected liberals standing with conservatives, which means people who used to work in entertainment, rock stars, musicians, actors, people who used to be entrenched in Democrat politics being like, they've gone nuts, I'm out. All that creativity and cultural influence starts bleeding into the right, where we used to make fun of these like religious and conservative attempts at making films or movies, like everyone jokes about Bible Man and stuff like that. You now have Angel Studios making amazing movies. So you've got, obviously Sound of Freedom was awesome and hits a good message, but now they've got, I'm blanking on the name of that new movie that's coming out soon. Do you guys know about the nun in Brooklyn?
Oh yeah, I can't think of the name of it, but I know what.
Off the top of my head, I can't think of it. Yeah. But they've got a bunch of trailers coming out. Angel Studios is skyrocketing.
Well, and now Mark Wahlberg and Mel Gibson want to set up new studios in Nevada, which is actually a big buzz right now in Nevada. A lot of people are talking about that. But what you're getting into now is results of policy, right? So if we look at the results of policy, what have we seen most recently? Let's just look at one issue specifically with illegal immigration. Well, all of these cities run by Democrats that embraced this idea, this concept, never seen or heard of before, sanctuary cities. Well, what are they all doing now? Now Democrat voters are in the streets. They're protesting the illegal immigrants. And so, look, we're a sanctuary city. We want all the illegal immigrants, but damn it, get them out of here. Send them back to Texas. We don't actually. So now let's look at what the results of, let's say, if they get their pipe dream of disarming American citizens. Well, what are you going to have? The criminals are going to run the city. All the criminals are going to have the guns, and the law-abiding citizens are going to be disarmed. Well, what are they going to do then? Well, they're going to protest. During
COVID, this is hilarious, and the riots that erupted, you had out of Southern California lines out the door to gun shops, and there was a gun store owner who made a video saying, y'all come into my store yelling at me that you can't buy a gun today because you voted for this. Stop telling me I can't do it. And it's really, really funny. They rushed to buy guns when the riots erupted, and then they crashed headfirst into the policies they voted for.
Well, but this gets to a bigger point. There are so many Democrat voters out there who do not connect their vote with the consequences of their vote. Okay.
Bingo. Yeah.
So
Bingo.
Like if you grow up in a deep blue area like New York City and your parents vote Democrat, so you vote Democrat or you're culturally Democrat or however you describe yourself, and then you just like an automaton, like robotically just vote for the same thing, but then wonder why your city is going to hell in a handbasket, why you can't walk down the street without fear of being mugged. They don't connect. And, I have ton of Democratic friends who live in New York City, and they're like complaining nonstop about Adams and Biden and illegal immigrants all over the place and the clouds of pot smoke on the street. And when I say, okay, so you're going to vote Republican next time, right? You're going to vote for Trump or you're going to vote. No. They're like, oh, no, I would never vote for Trump. Yep. So stop complaining then. But you're also, with your ignorance, inflicting all of this on the rest of us.
They like quite literally took a dump on their own floor and then complained it was there. It's it's yours.
Yes.
Or it's like that one. It's like that one meme with Eric Andre shooting the guy and saying, why would you do this?
Yeah.
But, I think it was Michael Savage in the 90s that coined the phrase liberalism is a mental disorder, right? And it's really just been kind of a cliche or a catchphrase for a decade or two. But now I think we can really analyze this and understand it. And you just started to hit on it. And psychology has always been a big interest of mine. I studied it in college. And what we're dealing with here is this is the mental disorder now as modern day liberalism. I literally think they cannot attribute action to consequence. I mean, I literally think there's something wrong. It's like, if you're playing chess and you move the pawn and then the guy makes checkmate, it's like, oh, how did you do that? What? But it was like, they literally cannot think one step ahead. I literally think there's something wrong.
But I guess the challenge is it's not a disorder. It's just that some people don't have the ability to see as far as some people. And so a natural sorting algorithm occurs. Look, people are stupid, people are average, people are smart. What I think you end up seeing is, why is it that the Republican policies, and not all of them, because the Republican Party, I think, is very, placid and weak, but the discussion tends to be very, mature, serious. It's not always, because it's not absolute, I'm saying, but there's a lot of, look, I'd like to fund healthcare, but let's talk about where the money comes from. If we're going to fund this through this way, what do we get on the left? They just say, what do you mean? Just do it. Just do it. AOC says deficit spend. It's like they say, just spend the money. I'll give you an example. Up to your point, Owen, I was arguing with some socialists on Twitter because it's fun to do.
Yes.
And this was during like the 2020 primary or whatever. I was a big fan of Yang and Tulsi Gabbard. And I was arguing with a socialist, and we got to the discussion of, they wanted a socialist utopia. And I said, okay, let's start from the beginning. Where does food come from? Like the basic resource a human needs to survive. And they said the store.
Wasn't AOC on tape like, oh my gosh, it grows from the ground?
Did she? I don't know.
No, look that up. Cauliflower. She learned cauliflower grew from the ground. She didn't even know.
But I got two points to make on that one. But the first is, I said, no, food comes from farms, or like, I suppose theoretically you could, go pick in from the wild, but he's like, what do you mean? It's at the store. The food's at the store. And I'm like, holy crap. Do you not know about the supply chain? They don't.
No.
And it's because some people are just not that smart, and they can't think, like you said, one step ahead. I'll give you a better example of someone who actually is smart, but doesn't know and lacks the knowledge. And that's Kyle Kalinske. He's a great guy. He's a good dude. I'm not trying to be mean to him, but he had that infamous tweet where he took a picture from a plane of farms and said, I wonder why it looks this way. He's an example of someone who does read, who does know a lot, but is missing key information and key facts. So when he sees a farm from overhead, he's like, how does this happen? And everyone's like, bro, those are farms. That's where food comes from. He's not a dumb guy. He just lacked this one detail, this one bit of information, but that's going to severely influence all of his voting patterns and policy positions. Yeah. That's the issue, I think. It's a combination of when I bring a Democrat in here and I say, here's a video of Joe Biden saying, you're not getting $1 billion. They go, I've never seen that before. Because they're trapped in this CNN world and they can't see out of it. You then have other people who can't think one step beyond their actions. So I guess my point ultimately here is it's not a disorder necessarily. It's just that, I'm trying not to say they're just stupid, but what happens is if you get a group of politicians saying, vote for me, I'll give you free stuff, they go, wow, and they're going to vote for it.
They're first order thinkers.
Yes. And you go to a conservative and say, vote for me, I'll give you free stuff. They'll be like, from where? And they'll say, we'll just give you the money. From who? We can print it. And what's that going to do to inflation and my savings? They have questions to be asked about what the ramifications are going to be. Democrats tend not to, Republicans tend to, which then puts more inquisitive, less agreeable people are going to be on the right. Yep. There's going to be disorganization. There's going to be infighting. There's going to be challenges. And the left is going to become a collectivist mob of people who are like good thing versus bad thing.
Well, I'm all for a good spirited debate. In fact, I like that. In fact, I mean, they've banned all my videos from every social media platform. But I mean, really, that's what kind of got me my big first step in politics was going out on the streets and talking to liberals, talking to Democrat voters and realizing how ignorant that they actually are. People were stunned. It's like, hey, why don't you like Trump? They couldn't even answer the question.
I watched, so I think this is like 2 days ago, last week or whatever. I'm sitting on my couch playing Baldur's Gate 3. I got a Steam Deck. You guys, those are awesome. It's a handheld, like plays PC games. I'm super excited for this.
I got a Steam account.
So, but it plays Steam games on this handheld, and it's really awesome. I'm playing Baldur's Gate on it. And so we put on, we go on Amazon, and there's a documentary. I forgot the name of it, but it's a Democrat woman made a documentary several, like years and years ago, about how her uncle or her dad turned into a right-wing nut job. And it's all about how Rush Limbaugh was evil. And it had like the dude from Media Matters in it talking about the right-wing media ecosystem. And I'm like, the Media Matters dude lies all the time. Like these people are depraved. But the people who don't understand what's happening blindly believe their cult leaders and march in lockstep. And when in this documentary, she interviews her dad and asks him questions like, didn't you used to be a Democrat? He says, I did. But that was because I didn't know anything. And then once I started looking at everything, I started to realize what was going on. And it's like, interesting how that plays out.
Well, here's a perfect example. Real quickly, Monica, let's talk about, I think everybody here would be, let's just make a specific example. Who here wants us to continue to send billions of dollars to Ukraine? Anybody? Nobody. Right. Okay. So we've sent hundreds of billions to Ukraine. When a socialist or a leftist comes up to me and says, we need to have money for healthcare, we need to have money for education, I sit there and I say, okay, let's just pause. I'll hear you out. I don't like big government. I'm not a socialist at all. But you know what? Hold on. Let's maybe reach a logical conclusion. Okay, where are you going to get that money? Are we going to stop spending hundreds of billions of dollars on the military industrial complex? I'll tell you what, I'm not for big government spending. But if you wanted to take those funds and invest it into America, you might have my ear. I might actually be willing to hear that argument out. But it's like you said, Tim, they just think it just comes out of nowhere. It's just magic land, free money for everything.
I just watched an episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I don't know if it was new or not, but it was called The Gang Gets Inflated. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it starts with they're hanging out wondering why things are getting more expensive, rent is going up, and then Frank explains inflation. And it's like it's an amazing episode. I haven't watched It's Always Sunny in a long time. But when you talk to these people, like AOC said, we should deficit spend for healthcare. They don't understand the concept of how money works, how inflation works, what inflation means for your savings, for your retirement, for older people. In their minds, they're like, money gets food, so just print more of it. And it's like, okay, money represents value, and it's a trade medium for the labor you do to get the food from the labor someone else did. If we just print money and give it to everybody and they buy all the food, there's no food and no one making food. You're going to maximize demand by giving everyone access to the market, and then remove all of the products from the market without creating anything, because the people who are buying the food aren't creating anything. So you see what happens here. Prices begin to skyrocket. They don't get that. In their minds, just print money, right? And so there's that famous quote, they attribute it to this Native American guy, where he said, only when all of the rivers are dried and, air is polluted and the fields are barren will people realize that you can't eat money. And then the left all laughs about it. And I'm like, it's actually a really great quote. But I'll just say, only after all of the stores are closed, all of the prices are through the roof, all the savings have been crushed, will socialists realize you can't eat money. True. You want to print money indefinitely, but not produce anything? Here's how it's supposed to work. I provide a service, I produce something of value, I manufacture something, and then I get money for that labor in the market. I then use that money to trade with other people, so value is created and value is exchanged.
Yep.
You receive money for the value you produce, you exchange it, so the level of value in the system is at a constant. If you just dump money in the system and give it away to people, then value is being stripped from the system.
Yeah, money means
they can't think through that.
Economics 101.
I think there is a lot of ignorance. I think you're exactly right about that there are a ton of people who just don't know. But I also think there are a lot of people on the left who do know, and they just don't care.
Right.
So they reject it. It's not that they don't get it; they do, and they reject it. They're straight up Marxists. They're socialists or communists, however you want to determine it. But the difference between the right and the left, it's so much bigger than just the policy differences that we might have, because the left treats their ideology as a theology.
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
It's a religion.
Theology.
It's a cult.
Right.
That's what Elon Musk just said.
So
It's a cult.
while we are over here talking in stark terms of like numbers, like in terms of
logic.
the deficit or tax
Logic,
rates,
reality.
Yep.
Yeah,
logic,
they don't believe in logic.
policy,
Logic's
like
racist.
you just laid out, Tim, in terms of how a free market works. While we're over here talking about that, they are over here in a secular rapture.
100%.
Let me prove,
And that's why they think they have the moral high ground.
Let me prove it
two
for you.
ships passing in the night.
Exactly. Let me prove that for you. Let me play this video. Clown World posted this clip that's made the rounds for a few years, and I'm going to play
Came back recently,
it came back recently, but I'm going to play it for you here. This is your proof that we are dealing with a cult. Hope you enjoy.
About racism, anti-blackness, or violence.
I love this every time. It's so good.
I will use my voice in the most uplifting way possible. And do everything in my power to educate my community.
This is called a profession of faith.
Yep.
This is like the Nicene Creed.
100%.
I will love my black neighbors
So
the
wild.
same as my white ones.
Look at what they're worshiping with their hands.
About
They got their face muzzles
Okay.
on.
It's their profession of
this-
faith.
Science
Absolutely.
kill me.
This is a cult.
unreal.
There is no let's talk about a religion versus a cult. Religions, and this is what's funny, because there's a lot of people who like to call Christianity a cult, and I'm like, well, maybe when I was 17 I might have said something like that. But then you learn about the prominent and well-respected philosophers of olden days who happen to be Christians, their teachings, their writings, very, very brilliant things were written by many people who are Christian, Catholic, or otherwise. And we still look to these when we reference law. Blackstone's formulation, for instance, which lends to the Fifth and Sixth Amendments. I mean, a plethora of the Bill of Rights, actually. And it's rooted in the story of Sodom and Gomorrah in the Bible. You have a religion where people are asking deep philosophical, moral, and spiritual questions. You have a cult, which does none of those things, doesn't believe in any of it, blindly follows without question. These people are worshiping nothing. Nothing. There's no tenets. There's no moral framework. There's nothing to live by. Just the power of those who are the high priests and priestesses of the cult. That's why it's a cult.
And their 5 minutes of hate. Don't forget about their 5 minutes of hate.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
thank you. Orwell, yes, absolutely. And by the way, they have their hands in the air. And as you say, Tim, they're worshiping nothing, but they're in this secular rapture. And what they're repeating is all words of love and tolerance. Use your voice for good. They are the most vicious, intolerant monsters on the face of the earth. Not everybody. A lot of these people just get sucked in. They don't even know what they're doing. But the leaders leading these kinds of movements are the most vicious and evil, and we should talk about all this stuff in spiritual terms. Evil is at the root of so much of what we see.
And let's be real here, because I can already hear the defense from many of these liberal leftist types, and I hate calling them liberals because they're not really liberal, saying like, oh, and religions didn't have cults and blah blah. It's like, dude, look, a lot of people were killed in the name of God. You name the religion, and there's religious conflict and war, zealots and cult-like behavior, and really awful things. I'm simply saying there's a difference between a cult and a religion. There seems to be a purpose to a religion. There are bad actors and there are good actors, just like there are good humans and bad humans anywhere. Within cults, it is meaningless, collectivist zealotry. So you look at this crowd in this video. What do you think would happen if, say, like Andy No walked through it?
Assault, battery,
Right.
blood.
And we know that's true because it's quite literally what they did to him. Imagine what would happen if someone like Billboard Chris walked by this filming and tried to ask them questions.
Same story.
Same story, and we know because it's happened to him. But the funny thing is, when there was a Trump rally in the Pacific Northwest and a guy showed up doing Nazi salutes and screaming racial slurs, what did the Trump supporters do? They told him to leave and he wasn't welcome because they didn't want the hate. Really amazing. This is a cult. You have people, you know, it's fascinating. You have the saying that, you know, a lot of progressives like to say the old world is dying and the new world struggles to be born. They're referencing their weird cult religion trying to emerge. But the reality is the old world is the uniparty establishment that's been around since perhaps 1913 or slightly before then, and then implemented with a lot of these changes we saw over the past century. And now you have two new worlds trying to be born. The resurgence of the constitutional republic or the progressive neo-Marxist revolution. The establishment uniparty took over a long time ago and morphed this country into something grotesque. Foreign wars for empire, nation building, garbage nonsense. And now you have, with Bernie Sanders and with Trump, these two factions popping up and trying to establish their worldview. I happen to like the constitutional republic and the Constitution and the individual liberties, meritocracy, and things like that. And I'm opposed to blind zealotry. So it's fascinating that in this culture war, we can hang out with Seamus Coughlin, a devout Catholic, every day on this show for 6 months out of the year for the past couple of years. And we'll have questions and conversations about faith and religion with smiles on our faces. And then we'll go to Waffle House afterwards and we'll laugh and make jokes together, because that's what the constitutional republic was. This great melting pot of people trying to understand each other. In their world, if you disagree, you are the enemy and they physically attack you. They then accuse their enemies of being the ones who physically attack people when they don't.
Well, and you know, this was part of, let's say, the old America or a better America, the America of the past, is that rich people and poor people, they shared the same sidewalks, they shared the same restaurants, they shared the same bars, they went to the same ball games, they flew on the same airlines, and that was it. Whether you were rich, whether you were poor, whether you were middle class, everybody respected the fact that, hey, we're all rich in freedom. And so we can all share the same things and we can all get along because we appreciate our freedoms more than we care about how much money the guy to my left has or how poor the guy to my left is. And now it's this elitism that we see where the financial elite, the global elite, believe that they have the moral high ground and it's their duty to tell us how to live. And what's really frustrating, and I'm not a big historian, but I've had people reach out to me and veterans and people, and they say, Owen, in my day, we used to invade countries for what they're doing to you. We used to go into banana republics and we would shut that down and we would try to restore a constitutional republic. And so or maybe even form a democracy, as they would at least used to claim. And so what's frustrating is that we went through an entire century of testing this methodology, right? What works better, communism or free market capitalism? Look at what was built in the West versus the fall of Russia, right? Or if you want to maybe a better example, look at North Korea compared to South Korea. Well, now it's like we have to learn the lessons of the 20th century all over again.
Yes.
I want to show this meme real quick to prove Owen's point. This is Christy Yamaguchi Main said, the Taco Bell drive-thru at 1 a.m. will have a $200,000 Mercedes S65 waiting right behind a 96 Cavalier that's never had the oil changed, followed by a moped ridden by 3 people, all craving the same thing, to live Mas. Truly the last great melting pot of class in this country.
That's it.
But this is literally true. Because we got a local Taco Bell out here, and I didn't have Taco Bell in like a decade. And then me and my girlfriend were driving. Oh no! What first happened was we were with Seamus, and we drove past a Taco Bell, and Seamus was like, he asked us if we wanted to live Mas, and we were like, I mean, Taco Bell's really good, and so I'm in a Tesla, and we pull up behind like a Honda Civic, and there's like a Toyota, and it's exactly this story. We just cheesy gordita crunches, man. Those are good. but that's the thing about America is that what I truly love about this country, having traveled all over the world, the idea that some working class dude with dirt on his hands can be standing on the sidewalk when the mayor of his city of 2 million walks by, and he can give him the middle finger and say, F you, you're a scumbag. And they can't do anything about it.
Well, not anymore.
Oh, now it's
Look
getting
at what's
crazy.
happening to Owen. I mean, you try that and you're likely to get arrested, right?
Joe Biden is a pedophile.
Wait, you're not quoting my sentencing document, are you? Hold on, we're not getting into that yet.
Look, we're trying to apply logic here, right? And the other side is not engaged in logic whatsoever. They're deeply immersed in ideology, of course. But what Trump's ideology for the left is power. It's the pursuit of power, it's the acquisition of power, and it's the exercise of power. That is what drives them. So what we just described with Taco Bell, that's the way America is supposed to be. America has always been an aspirational society. We don't hate the guy in the Mercedes. We all want to be the guy in the Mercedes, right? And achieve. And the left realized that there was no currency in that. So they realized they could not gain a foothold of power in America if we all loved each other and we were all aspirational and we all supported each other. So
happy people don't revolt. I say this all the time. Happy
so
people with good families don't revolt.
They came right in with divide and conquer. Mm-hmm. And that's what all of this is, whether it's gender, race, political values, doesn't matter. They have come in with giant wedges to blow us all apart. Yep. And it is, in my opinion, it's a crime against humanity.
And you mentioned race, and back in, I think it was probably the 50s, this guy, Herbert Marcuse, which you probably heard his name.
Yeah.
Herbert Marcuse pointed out that the revolutionary energy was no longer in the working class because capitalism delivers the goods. Your average person that will go to work and, not be late and do their job, they won't be poor. If you're in America, Ben Shapiro says this, if you're in America, you finish high school, you don't have a kid outside of marriage, and you get a job and keep it for a couple of years, you will not be in poverty in America. Now, what poverty means to some people might be different, but you're not going to be destitute. You're not going to be broke. You're not going to be unable to pay your bills. You're not going to be unable to feed yourself if you follow those 3 rules. But the communists, or Marcuse was saying that when the revolutionary energy was no longer in the working class, you had to go to race Marxism. And that's where all of the intersectional stuff has come from, basically trying to put different races against each other, because when society was all focused on everybody trying to be basically a classical liberal, trying to better themselves, society works together. When you have the ability to separate people by classes, then you have the ability to cause fights and chaos and stuff.
Let's jump to this story. We have this story from Politico. Owen Shroyer, InfoWars host and colleague of Alex Jones, gets 60 days for January 6th misdemeanor. The judge contended that Shroyer played a role in amping up the mob at a sensitive moment during the riot. I just want to address that subhead right away. Owen Shroyer was not criminally charged for incitement or anything pertaining to what other people did. Owen, I believe you were charged for just being in a restricted area.
So, do you want to dig into this? Do you want to go into the details now?
I want that to be really clear right away. The judge contended you amped people up, so they're sending you to prison for a crime you did not commit. A crime they did not charge you with.
That's correct. I ended up facing one charge in this proceeding, and that was entering and remaining on restricted grounds. And without going too into the weeds in this, for obvious reasons, find me one other person in my situation that's facing those charges. You can't. So what am I left to assume? I'm being targeted. What else am I left to assume when I'm the only one that is having this result? And what's interesting, and we can, whenever you want to, Tim, I mean, we can dig into this sentencing document, but when you go back and we're trying to get the transcription of today's court events to be expedited because there was no cameras or recordings allowed in the courtroom. So there's a lot of stuff in there that I think is going to wow the people. So we're trying to get the transcription of those proceedings published as quickly as possible, because what you find out is that the government is trying to have their cake and eat it too. They're trying to argue that this is not a free speech case. That is their argument, that this is not a free speech case. And yet, at every point in their presentation today, their argument was based off of something that I said. There are 4 different sections in this sentencing memo, 4 different headliners. Every single one of them is based off of my speech. Now, what's also interesting about this is they have to admit in the document. Now, they won't say Alex Jones's name for whatever reason.
They call him Person One.
So he's Person One. Person One. That's like, that should be his new moniker, is like Person One. He should just like own that. Person One. But they admit it. They even have a quote in here. Tried to de-escalate. So they quote in the document that we tried to de-escalate, and then their final argument is that I tried to amp it up. Which one is it?
Well, but hold on there, good sir. Weren't you charged for being on restricted grounds?
Yes.
What does amping up a crowd have to do with being in the wrong place? If a guy steals a bottle of wine from a liquor store and then the prosecutor says he once yelled at a dog, I'm going to be like, yelling at a dog's not illegal. Saying mean words to a dog has nothing to do with him stealing wine. Why is it even a part of a sentencing document? Because it's clearly about your speech, who you are, what you do. And, look, I got a photo here. NBC News posted this. It says U.S. District Court for D.C. And there's a red circle over an individual that I guess they're saying it's you, right?
Yes.
There's a whole bunch of other people that are there, including Alex Jones standing right next to you. Are they going to criminally charge Alex Jones?
Well, I'd prefer not even to answer that question.
I know, but you look at the charges, you look at the sentencing document. It is I would say a reasonable person concludes when they read that document, they highlight your speech before, during, and after. Well, hold on there a minute. Your speech about politics. It's not like it's one thing if your speech was, yes, I did this thing, haha, and I'll get away with it too. No. It was you on a show saying the election was stolen and things like that. And they said that was why you should go to prison for the charge of being on restricted grounds. Completely unrelated. If they had charged you for incitement, perhaps that would have made, they didn't. Because nothing you said was legal incitement.
Exactly.
I should say illegal incitement.
And this is a serious topic, and not to get too campy, but the reason why you joked at the top of the show about if you're a member of the federal government, you can't tune in tonight is because the joke is that clearly the federal government listens to everything I say, and this document is proof positive. And there's even another level of irony to this. I have been banned off every social media platform, just like Alex Jones. We have to create our own platform at ban.video just so our shows can exist. So, and we now know that the federal government was pursuing these censorship issues thanks to Elon Musk, the Twitter files, the Facebook files. And so how ironic is this? The federal government pushes to have InfoWars, Alex Jones, myself, all censored off the social media platforms, and then they still tune in every day.
But here's a question. I mean, is there I got to ask a lawyer about this. I was earlier in the show, for those that are just watching this segment, I said, if you I hereby revoke authorization to timcast.com if you are a federal agent of the government or an agent of the federal government. And if you watch the uncensored show, you'll be in violation of the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. I'm kidding. By all means, you are allowed to watch it. But I really wonder about that. Is there like a legal way to do that? Because what you guys do is you say, if the authorization for access to ban.video is only for non-governmental employees, And if you are an employee of the federal government, you must subscribe at the $1,000 per day level.
Let's start millions.
Make them really pay for it to watch you guys.
Yeah.
And they're gonna be like, well, we can't afford that now. They'll do it anyway. I mean, of course, it's ridiculous.
They'll print the money, right? They'll find out. They'll find out where it comes from.
Well,
But-
do you know what's the deal? When are they gonna when do they lock you up?
So there's still some nuts and bolts to this. There's still some loose ends to this. If people want to get a lot of the information, myself and my lawyer had a press conference outside of the courthouse today after the proceedings were finished. You can go find that exclusively at band.video. And myself and my lawyer, I mean, we go into it. We go into the weeds. We go into the nuts and bolts. And so really all the information can be found there.
Is there like a link or is it?
If you go to band.video, I'm sure I've been running around all day. I haven't gone to check myself, but I'm sure they have it in the front fold or in the scrolling marquee. So I know it should be easy to find, or at infowars.com. But as far as what's next, we do plan to appeal. There's still some questions as far as, we're assuming that we're going to be able to appeal. It'd be like almost as shocking as the incarceration, almost as shocking as the sentence if they didn't let me appeal. But I mean, at this point, who knows?
Right.
They may deny the appeal. And I will also tell you that we believe that this is an important enough case to make it to the Supreme Court. And maybe that's where we prefer this case ends up, is at the Supreme Court, because we believe it is that big of a free speech issue. For the time being, and my lawyer let the court today know that we plan to appeal. And so at least for the time being, even though I think the government was kind of biting their cheek, they are going to allow me to not be incarcerated and remain under my strict probation during the appeals process, the same probation I've been under. Now, again, this could all change, like the wind could change directions, right? And so when that happens, they'll set a date that I have to turn myself in, and the rest will we'll learn from there. There's still some nuts and bolts, I think, that we have to kind of find out for the rest of the week. I'll have more answers to that if people want to find my show, and I'll keep them updated with my lawyer at band.video. I host the War Room. But here's the thing, Tim. There's two levels of me when I look at this and when I think about this and where it impacts me. Obviously, the personal level is I don't want to go to jail. I don't believe I belong in jail. I would even tell you that I believe that this case should be done, and I've served my probation with good behavior. Nonetheless, that's not the result that we got today. Then there's the other side of me that's just an American citizen. I remove myself from the picture, and it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart that future Americans may have to suffer through the same fate or worse. It breaks my heart that a young journalist coming up or a talk show is coming up is going to have to censor themselves, chill their free speech, or be afraid.
That's the thing.
Be afraid of what they're going to say.
That's the thing that people really have missed with this whole situation. And again, we talked about first order thinking earlier. Everyone that's like, oh, it's fine. They're all guilty of first order thinking because it's not their political party. It's not something they agree with. This is going to be used against first conservatives, if the government gets away with it, right? So this is the test, the small little, see what we can get away with. Every time the government successfully does something that is questionably legal or illegal, that only ensures that they're going to do more later. There's never a time where the government says, oh, this isn't a new power. This is only in this case. They're going to look at this as, oh no, now we can go after people that say that skirt the line or whatever. There's always going to be an escalation. And this is going to turn around. If conservatives get into office again, this will be used on the left. Absolutely. And I'm going to endorse it.
Well, it's going to be used on the left by the left.
Yeah,
that's true. I just to reference, like every communist revolution, the first group to be purged is the revolutionaries.
Right. Yeah.
Because
the most people that die from communism are communists.
Thankfully.
Right. When you're talking about evil authoritarians who go around murdering people, we want that to not be the case. And in these revolutions, look at Robespierre, live by the sword as it goes. When a revolution happens, you now have factions vying for political power to have their vision come true. And the meme is, there's like a bunch of people standing around all with the same thought bubble saying, I can't wait for the collapse to happen so that my ideology will take over. Well, what happens when the system collapses is all these different groups now say, my way, no, my way, no, my way. And then someone gets slightly more political power and says, we've got to take out anybody who fomented revolution because they're our only threat. The regular people who sit by and don't do anything, they're no threat to the machine. So if these Antifa leftists and crackpots get their way, they're going to be the first to be locked up in federal prisons and kept away from sunlight and communications because they're the real risk to the new machine.
Well, and Monica, you were getting into this earlier, and it goes back to the one train of thought. I don't forgot the phrase that you used, Tim, the one line of thinking here. But, okay, look at some policies of the left. What do they want? Well, they want to, let's just use the Second Amendment. They want to disarm Americans. Okay, so I always ask, how many people have to die for you to disarm every American? How many people are going to have to die in that process? And are you going to be allowed to use guns? Are you going to be allowed to use guns to disarm the fellow Americans? And so why does the left seek power? Because their policies inherently need power. It is a necessity to have totalitarian control in order to achieve the communist doctrine.
And so for all of these people who think they can go along to get along, I'm on their quote unquote right side right now, they're feeding the alligator, hoping that the alligator eats them last, right? And so we've seen this throughout history. History repeats itself because human nature is what it is, right? Yeah. But Tim, to your point about how the different factions then end up cannibalizing each other. Right now in the world, you've got three major forces, and they're all on the same side now to knock off the United States of America, which is the biggest obstacle to their globalist plans. You've got the globalist Marxist revolution. You've got the CCP, which is a form of it, but unto itself. And you've got the Islamists. And so all three factions want to see the end of Western civilization, certainly the end of America. So they're all working together now to accomplish that. But once they knock over America, assuming that they're able to accomplish it, then they're going to go to war with each other. And that's going to be a global conflagration that you don't want to be a part of.
I want to pull up this story from the Post-Millennial. Oh boy, this is a good one. New Mexico Attorney General says he won't defend the governor in lawsuits over ban on carrying guns. My duty to uphold and defend the constitutional rights of every citizen takes precedence. So let me break this down for you guys, what this means. All right. Many of you probably know, but the AG is the state's top lawyer. When they're sued, it's the attorney general who is going to be dealing with drafting a lawsuit or a rebuttal or whatever and filing lawsuits on behalf of the state. And, this means the governor will be on her own, and I don't know how she's going to pull this off. There are already lawsuits being filed for the decree to ban guns. The AG is like, I'm not defending you. You're on your own. So how is her office going to respond to this? It's going to be default judgment instantly across the board. That's amazing. I mean, so. She might actually lose her office. I mean, the taxpayer could lose a lot of money from this.
Yeah. Well, and I'm hoping, and I mean, I could talk about it personally, but I'll just make a general statement. I'd like to see any attorney general. I wouldn't expect that from Merrick Garland anytime soon, but I'd like to see a widespread approach from any sort of attorneys generals that says we are not going to prosecute speech.
Yeah.
You bring a free speech case to us. We are not going to prosecute it. We are going to toss it out, much like what you're seeing with this New Mexico case.
I don't know. I've got a theory about this New Mexico case. I think it was a trial balloon.
Yep.
I think, they knew what they were doing. They did it in New Mexico for a reason. They didn't do it in the Northeast or anything like that. And they ran this up the flagpole to see what the response would be. They enlisted this governor to do it. They got blowback. They must have seen some internal polls in the first 24 hours that were off the wall bad. And that's why they sent out David Hogg and who was the other big pro-gun? Oh, Ted Lieu.
Ted Lieu, yeah.
All of their tweets were the exact same language. There is no state exemption to a constitutional right.
But I'd like to introduce them to their opinions during COVID because quite the opposite
this
stance.
Is what they do, though. They manufacture a crisis. They make up a crisis out of thin air, and then they go down this path, and the next thing you know, you have no rights.
Yeah.
right? So this, I think, was a trial balloon. It was trying to pave the path to kind of normalize this kind of thing. So while we're celebrating that it didn't work now, they're taking another step to normalizing taking away your guns.
Well, and what's even more frustrating, again, it gets back to the same issue. There is no data that supports this approach. There is no data that supports this policy.
Right. They don't
and in
care.
fact, the exact opposite, whether it's Kennesaw, Georgia, where it's the most heavily armed county and there's the least amount of gun crime, or whether it's what happened in Brazil recently, or they always point to Australia and they say, oh, we got rid of the guns and the gun crime went down. Actually, when they made the new laws in Australia, more gun purchases happened.
I'm sorry, Owen, you were wrong. You're just wrong. There's tons of data showing that what they're doing works in a communist revolution.
Exactly.
So,
wait, are we in the communist revolution? Is that what you're telling me?
Currently in a
but let's be
cultural
serious.
revolution, yes.
Their view on why you shouldn't have guns is not based on your view of why you should have guns. When we say things like, "Hey, look, I live in a semi-rural area, mostly rural area, and the police aren't going to be here if we have got a serious issue, so we need to defend ourselves." You know,
they do want to defund the police too, so that's not an out of left field argument. That's very relevant.
The argument that we have is, if you have a gun, you are safer. The argument they have is, I will lie to you because in order to steal political power, I have to take away your ability to fight back or defend yourself. And then and also the creation of anarcho-tyranny. You look at what's happening in San Francisco. You see that viral video of the young woman being like, I parked at a Taco Bell or something, and then went inside for 5 minutes.
Which one?
Oh, I know,
There's
right.
dozens of these now.
Lots of
Tourists.
videos.
That's embarrassing. As
CNN,
an American.
remember when CNN?
Twice that happened to CNN.
And we laugh about it like, you're what you sow. But it's the intent.
No, it's actually...
It's the anarcho-tyranny they want.
There was a story out of St. Louis where a young volleyball player, high school volleyball star, was set to go on scholarship, play volleyball in high school, college rather. She's at a high school volleyball tournament in St. Louis. She leaves the tournament. She's walking outside. She gets run over and paralyzed and can no longer play volleyball. The individual that ran her over was on release, already a multiple time offender, on release, let go by a George Soros liberal attorney, and what do you know, caused harm again. But you know, I would go, because here's where I think the legal theory needs to go, and this would probably nip this right in the bud. Let's propose a hypothetical here. Let's say that the New Mexico governor somehow is able to disarm the citizenry, okay? And let's say, Monica, you live in New Mexico and you're like, oh my gosh, the governor's right. I'm turning over my firearms. Okay, you've now turned over your firearms. You're a great person. The policy's working. Well, what happens, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to traumatize you. What happens when a criminal with a gun breaks into your house, rapes you, and murders you? Is the governor now complicit in that crime? How is she not?
And libel.
How is she not? You were
She had
disarmed.
some legal responsibility then for disarming me.
That's what I'm saying. If I come up and I disarm you, and then seconds later, somebody comes up and commits a crime to you, well, I helped cause that crime to be committed. I made you a victim.
Took a defense away, yeah.
But is anybody thinking about that legal theory? Because to me, that's the one thing, again, and this goes back, whether it's the illegal immigration, the Democrats hating the taste of their own medicine, that's the one thing that will always stand down a communist when they realize they're going to be held responsible when bad things happen. When they realize they're going to be held responsible, that will stop them. They just think they're above it all.
Yeah, they do. For sure.
Well, they're also protected from the consequences of their own policies and decisions, right? Because they live in the gated communities. They've got the armed security and the rest.
Yeah. Right.
Look, throughout history, anytime the communists have come to power, one of the very first things they do is empty all the prisons.
Yeah.
So all the violent criminals pour out onto the streets. Why? Because communists need the violent mayhem. They need the violent chaos to destabilize society, to slam into place what they want.
Yep.
It's like,
they look like they're the ones with the control and all the actual system. Yeah.
It's like Ghostbusters when
exactly it is.
What was the guy's name? Peck or whatever?
I don't remember.
He turns off the containment field and really saw the ghosts in New York City. You know, and then sowing chaos. Yeah. You know, we can't have that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that joke's been made like 800 times about how they're releasing everybody from prisons.
Yeah, but it's true.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it doesn't have to be releasing. They could just not put people in prison that are criminals.
Yeah.
But look, I gotta say, you know, A few people have responded when I keep saying that we're winning, and they're saying, no, we've only just stopped losing. And I'm like, you've got to have morale. Yeah. You know, like if you're in a battle, you know, if it's an actual war and the enemy controls 80% of the battlefield and you're making small gains, you don't go, we're really losing this one, guys, but I guess we'll keep going. Yep. You say, we're taking it, we're winning, storm ahead. And you know what I see? Sure, the left controls the institutions. Look what they're trying to do with banning guns. They're losing. These moves aren't working. It doesn't mean they're not trying and you give up. It means we're watching them break ranks. When they break ranks, you don't run away. You don't say, oh, gee, Willie, we're losing here. You say, charge. Yep. So when I see the tremendous economic success of all of these parallel economic brands, they tried to destroy My Pillow. My Pillow's still around. You can't get rid of those pillows.
Don't you say it's a lumpy pillow.
I was going to say
Don't you say that's a lumpy pillow.
I saw that video. I was just going to reference that when it's Mike Lindell in a deposition, I think it was, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And then he mentioned, the guy said something about your lumpy pillows. He's like, how dare you? It is not a lumpy pillow. It was really good. I mean, My Pillows are awesome, by the way. But anyway, you look at that. You look at even right now, you've got Cousin T's pancake mix. There you go. You got Jeremy's Razors, Jeremy's Chocolate, Conservative Dad's Ultra Right Beer, and now their limited edition Conservative Dad's Revenge.
Yeah,
we're having fun. Yeah. We're having fun and laughing as we build alternatives and get rich doing it, and we keep the money within our system. Look at Rumble's success. Their new UI. Let me tell you the success of Rumble. I was on Instagram looking at skateboard videos, and I saw a video, I think it was Paul Rodriguez, one of the most famous skateboarders in the world, at his private park, and Rumble Sports was on their wall. Yeah. And I'm like, when regular old skateboarders are going to Rumble to watch skateboarding, YouTube's in trouble. And we're winning the culture war. Because Rumble, the politics of Rumble are all the refugees of YouTube who got censored and banned.
Which are more and more.
More and more. But if kids, young teenagers, are going to go to Rumble and they're watching skateboarding, what's on their recommendation list for podcasts? It's going to be real news, real information. It's going to be independent media. And the machine can't control that anymore.
Well, and I think, too, when you talk about the emergence of Rumble, I would say it's the number one competitor to YouTube on a large scale.
Hands down.
They're really still kind of in the primordial ooze of what they could potentially be. And as I know, as a creator yourself, you know that there's a lot of bells and whistles that they're going to be needing to tinker with and fix, but they're still kind of crawling out of that media ooze to become a much better platform. But you know, when you get to the issue that you bring up, where people say, "Oh, we're not winning," or "Oh, this is bad, morale down," I could boil it down to two fundamental questions that I would respond to somebody like that, and I would just say, and you know, people will answer how they want, and I would just say, do you believe America is worth fighting for?
Yeah.
Do you believe freedom is worth fighting for?
Yes. I've been saying to people when they say, like, you know, how do I get started? I want to make videos or I want to do podcasts. I'm like, just do it on Rumble, because YouTube's not safe. Yeah. YouTube's got too many barriers. It's too hard to exist on, and it's not worth it. Especially, I'll tell you this right now. This is actually really, really funny. The amount of money we make on YouTube has gone down. You know why? Because so many of our viewers have moved to Rumble. We now average for Timcast IRL, I think, around 50,000 views on Rumble per clip. Whereas we used to get hundreds of thousands. We now get like 100 or so thousand, maybe like 50 to 100K on YouTube. Now 50K on Rumble. Rumble is rolling out more and more monetization. I really need them to do that. Right? Like, but this is because we want Rumble to be the definitive, viable alternative for running your business. The competition between YouTube and Rumble is healthy. Yeah. YouTube got to a point where they're like, we can censor whoever we want because you can't go anywhere else. Mm-hmm. Rumble emerges. They've got a bigger and bigger audience. The viewership is becoming massive. You like Dan Bongino, before he got banned from YouTube, had more viewers on Rumble. So when we see that, once Rumble gets to the point where they're running ads comparable to YouTube, YouTube is done. Because someone's going to say, I've got two choices. YouTube will censor me if I fart too loud. Rumble will let me be me. Why would you go to YouTube if they're paying comparably?
Well, and I would say too, as somebody that, I mean, I'm like a media addict. I consume media like a fiend. I mean, I'm constantly consuming media. And the one advantage that YouTube still has, and maybe this will change with time, is they have the archives. They've been around for a long time. They've got the archives. They've got a lot of establishment things that are always going to go up there. But now, if I'm thinking, hey, I want to go find a news story, or I want to go watch a news live stream, or I'm looking for latest breaking news, now I'm always going to Rumble. Rumble is always now my first source for that information. I don't even think about going to YouTube.
Well, to be honest, I go to X.
I was just
X
gonna
is,
say
but X is kind of like
X.
A news
ingrained in.
feed.
Yeah.
And Musk
I
is
won't
really trying. I mean, he's trying to make X Twitter.
Can I
the
campaign for
go-to
my account back
destination
now?
for
Is
news.
this
Yeah,
working?
yeah. I mean, look, I'm really excited for everything Elon has done with X. The rebrand is, I don't really care that much. I find it funny calling it from Twitter to X. People still call it Twitter, but I'm making money. I post a lot of goofy tweets, and I'm making money off of the interactions I have now. I do think they have some refining to do because the monetization strategy they have resulted in everyone just asking questions all day, which is like I roll my eyes at. But
Or just putting clickbait out there.
yeah, and so we want to avoid that, but it really is going to be up to you to just not follow bad accounts if they're doing that. It's that simple. But the fact that it's becoming a viable platform for generating revenue and running a business, awesome. The more competition in the space, the better. The more viable alternatives. But of course, Owen needs to have his Twitter account back.
So let me explain why this is an important thing. It's beyond just me getting my original Twitter account back.
Your X account.
I'm sorry. My original. Well, actually, technically it was never on X.
And considering it's a new platform, I think you should unban everybody and say it's a new platform.
I agree, including person one, as he's known himself. And really, quite frankly, all the other InfoWars accounts that got the mass banning. But here's why it's beyond just the censorship issue when we're dealing with my case. So my original account at All I Do Is Owen had a couple 100,000 followers when they banned me. I don't want to have to build up another account. I don't want to go through that again. I want my account back. I want my history. I want my archives. I want all that. I want the nostalgia. I want the memories. But here's what's crazy about it. There are multiple Owen Shroyers operating on X right now, verified. None of them are me. Not a single one of the Owen Shroyers with a verified blue check mark is me. And people that don't know any better, and I know, Tim, that this happened with your crew too, you put something out, Owen Shroyer responds, and people think, oh, that's the real Owen Shroyer. They reach out in a DM, they reach out in a reply, something lewd, crude, inappropriate gets said, and they're like, geez, this Owen Shroyer is a jerk. I don't want to deal with him. It's not me. Yeah. So now, not only am I being censored, I'm a victim of digital identity theft. Yeah. That's what's happening now. So it's not just, I want to be back on X. I want to be famous and popular again. No, I am having my digital identity stolen on X. So if anybody from X is listening to this, please restore my original account at All I Do Is Owen, J. Owen Shroyer. I'm sick of having my digital identity stolen from me. And if for no other reason, just so I can be on there and address these things. And hey, I don't know, when I'm trending on Twitter like I was for the last 24 hours, maybe I can get on there and speak for myself instead of having these fake accounts speaking for me illegitimately.
Yeah. I think I don't see any. I understand Elon's discussions about Alex. I'm sorry, person one. And person one's response to person one actually said he understands what Elon is doing and it makes sense. And this is the game you got to play to try and help restore free speech. I can respect that. I don't see why you're still banned.
It's either for my affiliation to person one, or I'm just assuming that there's still holdovers. There's still holdovers that are just gritting their teeth. Just gritting their teeth. We're not gonna let out.
I just love that Alex's new nickname is Person One.
I think he should embrace Person One.
Yeah. It's awesome.
I think he should embrace Person One.
It's also like he's the number one dude. You know what I mean?
But tell me this: how do multiple Owen Shroyer accounts get verified? How do they get verified? And I can't even have my account back. It's just mind-boggling.
Have you tried making a new account?
So there has been an account made for me just for live streaming. It's not my personal Twitter account because, quite frankly, I'm still wanting to have this crusade to get my original account back based on principle. And as you know, when you build something and you spend time on that, you don't want to have to rebuild from the ground up. You'd rather get back where you left off. So, I mean, I guess you could say I'm starting the crusade now. In fact, if you're listening, get on X and demand tweet Elon or tweet X and say, hey, please restore at All I Do Is Owen. He was trending on Twitter today, but all these false and misrepresentations of him are still on there. I've appealed my suspension 3 times since Elon took over. It's been rejected. So how is it that they reject my appeal and then accept fake Owen Shroyer accounts and verify them? It's just mind-boggling to me.
Yeah.
Well, that's how you fight for change. You go on a show and say, Elon, unban me.
Please, Elon, please. I just want to be on X.
I think, I mean, we didn't even get into the Elon news. They're accusing him of being a traitor because of that story that came out where he did not activate Starlink. This is crazy right now. We don't have a full segment for you, but Starlink is down across the board, apparently. Right around the same time that Elon Musk is a traitor is trending, and we've got this report. Maybe we have to get into this. This is big.
Well, this is big, Tim, because we're talking about World War III.
Yahoo News, the new voice of Ukraine, is the publication they're rebroadcasting. U.S. to hold closed-door meeting over whether billionaire is conducting own foreign policy. ? Is Elon Musk a traitor?
Now, think about what's insinuated in that headline. So Elon Musk isn't allowed to have a dissenting opinion? Elon Musk isn't allowed to have his own policy with his own companies?
His property.
Yeah.
Like, he is the owner of SpaceX. He owns all those.
What color is your house painted?
My house?
Yeah.
It's wood.
Well, that's illegal. No.
Crap.
But wait.
No, you have to have a blue house now, you traitor.
This is just like Iron Man 2. Remember? In the beginning, when Tony Stark is at the congressional hearing and they're like, we want the Iron Man weapon turned over to the government. And he's like, you can't have it.
Elon Musk is Iron Man. No.
I didn't make that connection.
Well,
You're
there's
totally right.
another aspect to this too, which is they're laying the groundwork to go after him on the Logan Act, right?
Wow.
That he is a private citizen carrying out American foreign policy in an unauthorized way. That's what they tried to do to General Flynn, right? It's all bogus and nonsense.
The Logan Act.
But it sounds also Senator Elizabeth Warren today or yesterday came forward and demanded that the Pentagon conduct their own investigation into Elon.
They're going to try to nationalize Starlink.
I mean, they're going after Tesla. They're going after him in every possible way. And it harkens back to Senator Chuck Schumer talking about Trump saying, well, if you go after the deep state, they have 6 ways to Sunday to come out after you again. Well, Elon now, who's, certainly an elite, richest man in the world, they're targeting him. So what they're doing is, and it's the same thing with you, Owen, as it is with Elon and the J6 defendants. These are all messaging events. Yeah. They're messaging events. It's don't even think about it. Don't even think about standing up for the Bill of Rights, free speech, Second Amendment. Don't even think about standing up for your country or we will destroy you.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if you're the richest man in the world or you're Owen or you or me.
Musk needs to make sure that he has a one button kill switch that just gets all of the satellites to fall out of orbit should they try to nationalize it and just burn up on reentry. Take the option away from them. But I really do think that they're going to try to nationalize SpaceX. They're going to say that his ability to access the internet and put the internet in places that they don't want it, and his ability to put significant, sizable rockets into space and stuff. They're going to say that that's national security, and they're going to try and nationalize.
And let's also think about what this is going to do to Elon Musk's political beliefs and actions. I mean, I can't believe...
It's only going to make him more like on our side.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I can't believe that he's going to sit here and say, oh, the Biden administration is right. I should have let them use my technology to kill Russians.
To start new.
They're radicalizing Elon Musk to be a deplorable.
Absolutely.
And he's like, hey, I just want to be a normal dude and have common sense.
But that's the thing. Your average person, generally, if they don't get fed the news from CNN, then or at least kind of if they're not very interested in the news or whatever, and they are told the topics that you hear people talking about and stuff, they tend to come down on what you would consider a normal person's perspective, not a Democrat's perspective. Because ever since, and I'm not going to get too deep into this, but ever since 2012, the NDAA, when they did the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act, which made it legal for the federal government to propagandize the American people?
That was Obama.
That was Obama. And it was 2012 they signed it, I think, or maybe it was 2011 they signed it, and there was the 2013. But either way, that's when it happened. And after that, everybody that I talk to, you talk to people all the time, they say, oh, you know, in like 2013 or so, things started getting crazy. They blame it on the end of the Mayan calendar, and there's all these things. But what happened was it became legal for the government to propagandize the American people. At the same time, there was market saturation of your cell phones, smartphones. So everyone had social media directly in their pocket, and it was constantly feeding them a drip of likes, which is literally the most powerful mind control thing ever created. So the federal government got the access to it. And they knew that it was coming because they saw social media when it first started in 2004, whenever, Friendster or whatever. But they saw it, and there are smart people that said that's going to be a big deal. The like button is going to be a big deal. And as soon as it was in your pocket and the government had their fingers in producing propaganda, all of the social media companies came running because the government prints the money. It's all access. So all the regular media, they want to be buddies with Obama and be buddies with people in power. So they go ahead and they capitulate and they come running. It's not that there's an adversarial, or there has been an adversarial relationship between the federal government and the media. They've been one and the same. And then you stop, and then you throw in the fact that there's an entire security apparatus that was built up after 2001. And you put those three things together, the American people have no chance.
Well,
they have no chance.
It's just like when the government was testing the flicker rates of the TV to make it as addictive as possible before they released it. But I just had an amazing connection listening to you say that. And Tim, this is going to take a trip down memory lane, because what happened in 2013? It was the Mike Brown riots. And you remember that was when
14.
That was 14. That was when live streaming really kind of first took off, and really that was a big movement on Twitter. And what was it? It was hands up, don't shoot.
Well, if you were to ask me, the Arab Spring was the first time we started seeing the emergence of independent live streaming. I think the guy's name was it Mohammed Nabous, I believe was the guy in Libya. And it was fairly rudimentary. And then with Occupy Wall Street, we saw people with webcams on their laptops. And then the Ustream app came out. I don't know of anyone else before me that started using it, but I started using the Ustream app to live broadcast from my phone on the ground with a mobile battery.
Yeah, that
during Occupy. This is 2011.
And then you were doing the same thing at the Mike Brown riots, and because I was there doing the same thing too. But the reason I'm making this connection is because hands up, don't shoot might have been the first institutionalization of that act. Hands up, don't shoot never happened. It was the #1 trend on Twitter and other social media marketplaces for months. It never happened. It caused riots. They still chant hands up, don't shoot to this day, even though the Obama DOJ admitted it never happened. Could that have been the first test case of the Smith-Mundt Act?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know for sure. But the fact that you had people on CNN, repeating the narrative, it definitely...
It may be when NBC News was taken over by the intelligence agencies. I think if there was going to be any news outlet that I thought was under the boot, people make fun of CNN, and I'm like, CNN's just garbage. NBC News is like evil. Just, and I'm talking about their digital team. They've got a team of writers who I won't say their names because I don't want to give them the attention, but they're abject evil.
Yep.
The things they've published are such obvious fabrications that I don't see a reality in which they're unaware that they're lying, cheating, and stealing for political power. And so a lot of people speculate that they're probably, what happens is someone from an intelligence agency will come to them and say, we need this story to run for this purpose. And they'll go, you got it, boss. Thanks for the scoop. And then they run what the machine wants them to run.
And they get their paycheck.
Oh, yeah. Good.
And they have no problem with it.
None.
Oh, no, they're willing participants. There are so many reporters that are, active, willing organs for the security state and just propagandize the American people.
Well, but this gets back to where we were at earlier. And again, it's such a mind-boggling thing. Like, really? Obama is a scandal-free president? Like, you don't actually believe that, do you?
A scandal-free president that shot missiles at American citizens without due process.
I mean,
that's
we could go on.
Scandal-free?
Fast and Furious, but it's the same thing. It's like, oh, Biden, he's so fit. Look, he's more fit than Trump. He's totally fit. And it's just like, you don't actually believe that.
Joe Biden fell up the stairs
Unreal.
on multiple
Twice, yeah,
occasions.
at least twice.
Yeah.
Fell up.
Why do you guys think he ran out of that medal ceremony? I think he crapped his pants.
Yeah, that's like
Yes, right. And the media came out and said it's being taken out of context. It wasn't that big deal that he left the way he did. And it's like, it was kind of abrupt. I mean, call it whatever you want. You could argue it wasn't informal, but it's abrupt for him not to hang out and shake hands and smile and meet people afterwards. Yeah, he probably had a bowel movement.
I think the fair way to analyze this, and it's not about obsessing over whataboutism. I think whataboutism is fair. It shows you whether you have justice. It shows you whether you have fairness. Let's just ask the question: if Donald Trump walked out of a Medal of Honor ceremony, can you imagine the headlines?
They'd accuse him of everything.
It's not hypocrisy. It's
By design.
Hierarchy.
It's hierarchy.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's right.
Ugh. Well, we got to go to super chats. We went a little long because this story was really important. But we're gonna go to super chats. If you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this YouTube channel, but more importantly, take the URL, share it wherever you can. Word of mouth is the most powerful tool in helping the work that we do because advertising is a challenge and podcasts grow by word of mouth. Head over to timcast.com, click join us, become a member. The uncensored show will be up in about 20 minutes. You're not going to want to miss it. We're going to have a whole lot of fun with this one. Let's read some super chats. All right. RJ McDougalheim says, getting in first so I can ask this. You mentioned the skate park idea yesterday. Are you looking for help? I ran a skate park for a while and would love to be part of it. Let me know how I can. Well, the first thing I'll say is I always read the first super chat. So then we go through and try and read a different grouping. I don't want to just read all the biggest ones or just read small ones. We try to mix it up, but I tend to read the first one. Not always, but typically. So for the skate park, what we did was there's a property in Martinsburg, which for the past 10 years, locals have built their own skate obstacles on this property. Now, the person who owned it previously, they were not really involved locally or anything like that. And at one point I tried to sell the property. So we bought it. It's a very, very large property with tons of concrete foundation already on it, which means that those that are skateboarding there now don't have to worry about what the owner is going to do because we're totally into the skateboarding. In fact, we're actually talking with a big company about in a separate area setting up some ramps. One cool thing we can do is we can get some skate light prefab, they call prefabricated ramps and ledges that can be placed in a different section. You know, what I don't want to do is for the people that built their own, little spot is affect it in any way because it's got, their own, touch of love in it. So I told the dudes there, I was like, you guys do whatever, do your thing there as you've been doing it. We'll go over here. But we've got a ton of land now to build a very big, legitimate professional park. And we just we're now navigating the legal structure of how we do this. But, the idea would be to build a big recreation area and park in Martinsburg, West Virginia. The plan, of course, is that we want to create an anti-Times Square. Perhaps we call it a public square in Martinsburg, where not only do we have a coffee shop, we have a Cousin T's diner, a Papa Jack's Pizza Shack. Maybe we get a My Pillow brick and mortar store, a Patriot Mobile cell phone shop. I mean, that would be the dream. So for the time being, our plan is just to have like a public open concrete thing. This could be between 2 and 3 years out. Who knows, based on permitting, legalities and things like that. But we'll figure it out. That's currently what we're working on. So it's super cool. Let's grab some more. We got Fatty Tang says, Dave Smith had a great interview with Vivek today. He asked if he's too good to be true and if he's afraid since he's going after 3-letter agencies. Oh, yeah.
I'll check that on the way home.
Yeah. Fatty also says, I heard Elon blocked access to Starlink in Crimea. The real story was that he never turned it on. And they got mad because they wanted to use it as a weapon for logistics as they struck Russia. And now they're calling Elon a traitor. Very creepy. All right. What do we got here? Flying Raptor Jesus says a brewery local to me, Vintage Brewing Co. in Sauk Prairie, Wisconsin, is having a drag show brunch in October. And as far as I can tell, it's open to minors. Can you shed some light on them to make it 18 plus? Well, I think you just did. I don't know enough about it, but I would recommend that you dig into it. Make sure that I mean, look, if they're having a drag show for a bunch of adults, I got no beef. Like, in fact, more power to you, man. Have fun. I hope you have a good time. If they are allowing kids, then I think you should look into that and bring up the issue. We're going to need everybody to be paying attention to this kind of stuff. Yeah. All right, let's go. Katoth Swith says, talk about how the government used the Election Integrity Partnership to silence and prosecute people like Owen and others. I summon Ian. No, Ian's not here.
He's not.
I don't know enough about it. I know that basically you have today, X has announced their, safety measures for election security or something. Everybody rolls their eyes. Look, Elon's done a lot of good stuff, but come on.
Yeah, seriously.
The Bonus Hole says, so how about a Culture War episode with Hinkle, Phil, and James Lindsay? Could be fun. Shameless plug. X at the Bonus Holes. Our debut EP is almost done.
Look,
very interesting name.
If Lindsay is here, and the topic is communism, I don't even need to show up. I'm just going to sit down and listen. The guy's so deep in this stuff, and he knows way more than me. Most of the stuff that I know is because I've listened to stuff that he's talked about or read stuff that he said that I should read or people should read or whatever. So,
Radioactive Rat says, Tim, can't wait for the remix of all the noises you made to censor the earlier segment, but bet it will be hilarious. You guys heard about the Democrat who had the adult subscription service available on the internet?
Yes.
Yeah. And so I'm reading quotes of what she was saying, and I can't read them on a podcast that, we have parents who will be driving in their car and their kids are with them picking up from school and they're listening to the show. And it's meant to be a more like, I talk news in my opinion, but in a way where the idea can get across to the parent without them having to explain certain words and phrases to their kids. And it started because a few years ago, I was referring to a group of people who all stand in a big circle and they are really mean to each other. In fact, they're jerks. And the phrase of which I referred to, I got emails from people being like, ha ha ha, I just had to explain to my kid what you were saying in a way that wasn't too explicit. Please, would you consider, toning it down for the families that may be listening? And I was like, good point. So now we say it's a circle of jerks who are all really mean, but they're patting each other on the back.
That's amazing. Well, at least they're able to, multi-purpose, multi-function.
That's right. But anyway, in the segment, I was like, the Democrat says, I need more tokens so that I can with my. Because I'm like, I can't read what she said, dude. It's messed up. It's crazy. And now she's claiming that it was like a leak of her private videos or whatever. It's like, dude, you posted them online for people to buy.
And the New York Times had a big story today calling it an invasion of her privacy when she was publicly posting
I'm like, lady,
personal pornography.
I'm like, lady, I got no beef if you're a hooker. Like, do your thing. I'm not a fan of that kind of stuff, but you have to own it. You can't do it and then be like, no, like now you look weird and weak. Like you got to own it and be like, that was me. Vote for me.
Is that the next move for Obama? Because didn't he follow some weird man whore accounts and stuff on Twitter that got
I don't know. Is that true?
I don't know. And now you got the Larry Sinclair stuff.
I want to believe.
I mean, come on. Joan Rivers said it first.
Yeah, but we'll get into the nitty gritty with the uncensored show coming up in 15 minutes, which will be a lot more fun. I've already got an opening statement for the uncensored show for Owen over here. All right, here we go. John Neeson said MSNBC last night said the Republicans were cheapening impeachment without recognizing that Biden is on video admitting to the very thing they impeached Trump for threatening. Wild cognitive dissonance. Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm. Joe Biden engaging in a quid pro quo. And the response is, yeah, but it was American foreign policy. Who sets the foreign policy? It was Obama. And why does he set foreign policy? He's the president. Donald Trump was the president. He sets foreign policy. He can ask Ukraine for whatever he wants.
But even that's part of the cognitive dissonance. Right. Trump was never the president.
Right.
Oh, illegitimate president. Yeah. But you know what? Speaking of Obama, he has skated throughout all of this. Joe Biden was conducting all of this alleged bribery and everything else right under the nose of Barack Obama. He had a boss, the president of the United States, and Obama has been very quiet. He has skated through this, and I think it's long past time we focus in on him. What did Obama know, and when did he know it? And by the way, did he benefit from any of this foreign money and largesse that came into the Biden family?
We got Jillian Quinones, who says, Owen Shroyer did nothing wrong. 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 Banned.video. Enlightening.
Thank you for that. Couldn't have said it better myself.
That's right. Bo says, "Where is the holy potato man? You got to send a tweet to Seamus Coughlin on Twitter and tell him to come back. We don't know where he just disappeared. He left.
He stole spoons.
Potato Man?
He stole spoons.
I thought they were talking about Stelter when they said Potato Man. That's the first thing.
Oh no.
Oh, yeah.
Seamus is Irish, and so the story is that I was watching Leprechaun 2, I think it was, and I'm sitting in the it's called the Great Room downstairs because like a kitchen in it, and I was watching it, and Seamus walked in, and there's a scene where this dude is turning into a leprechaun because he got bit, and so he's eating a bunch of crazy potatoes. It's actually in the movie, and then Seamus is like, "Hey, buddy, what you watching?" And he turns, looks at the TV, he's like, "What racist garbage is this?" Like shocked because he's Irish, you know.
You even had a little Irish accent with that too.
Oh yeah, yeah. So Seamus, you know, he's American, but because he's Irish, you know, it became the meme that he's, you know, represented by potatoes now. Even though I think potatoes are not endemic to
Potato
Ireland.
nationalist.
Potato nationalism. Yeah. Let's grab some more. Sergeant Mister says, "Iraq and Afghanistan survivor here. Keep Owen free and get us the hell out of Ukraine." Yep. You know, it's funny when the arguments for why we're in Ukraine, they just, the logic is missing. Sorry. It just is. Yeah. There's the logic of, yes, but we promised we'd be there and we have to maintain our treaties. And I'm like, Ron Paul said, one generation can't promise the children of another. So I understand that, like, well, but if the U.S. doesn't uphold its treaties, then what will other countries think? And I'm like, too bad.
Right.
Well, you know what?
It's not logical.
It wasn't a treaty, anyways. It was just it wasn't an actual treaty that Congress had anything.
I think it even goes beyond logic. I mean, the situation is complex, right? I mean, the situation with NATO and Ukraine and the history between Russia and Ukraine and Belarus and everything. These are complex historical issues that you have to have a deep understanding of. You can't just jump in and assume that, oh, I know everything. We should have the war because of this. No, there are a lot of complexities that go in to that situation, our foreign policy there, NATO's policy there, and to think that you can just jump in and say, yeah, we need to stop Russia. It ain't that simple, Jack.
Yeah. It's an intra-Slav fight that is not our fight.
Support current thing, you know?
Yep.
2023.
Yep.
What we got here, the Soft and Fuzz says 6 months on YouTube membership, woot, longer on Timcast. The Soft wife and the Fuzzy me husband love you guys. Where can we donate to help Owen?
defendowen.com, defendowen.com. And, you know, just so people get a better understanding of what's happening here, because of what Alex and InfoWars has gone through in the lawsuits against him, we can't even fund lawsuits anymore. We can't even fund legal fees. We can barely even fund anything outside of what we're capped at. So now we're forced to, and believe me, I don't like this. I'm not the type of person that wants to go out asking for help, but we've reached a point in time now where if our audience doesn't support us like this, I can't go on the road. I can't have security. We can't travel when there's breaking news, and we can't even fund our own lawyers anymore. So I'm eternally grateful for the InfoWars audience. Honestly, I don't know where I'd be without them. Your continued support at defendowen.com. I can't even find the words to express my gratitude, except that I'll never stop fighting for truth, and I'll never stop fighting for freedom, period.
Nice, man.
Right on. Think on this says, Tim, we are not winning anything. The average Dem voter does not have the money to sway the economy, but every American's vote counts equally. LOL, sorry, could not keep that in. Trump lost 2020 by 42,000 votes. Even if you're of the opinion that there was widespread cheating, that means even with all of that, Trump lost by only 42,000 votes in 3 states, which I say, I don't even think 2020 it doesn't matter at this point right now. What matters right now is registering people to vote, knocking on doors, getting as many people as possible to vote, and spreading the word as much as possible, speaking up as much as possible, being successful, making money, supporting businesses you like. Make it impossible for them to do whatever they do to win.
And just get involved, right?
Yeah.
If you're worried about the results, then find a way to get involved and protect, the results, or make sure the integrity is there. And, this is an issue that's not really sexy. It's not really punchy, but it is actually going on. I mean, we've had Kari Lake has had victories in Arizona. There's been a lot of situations in Michigan as well where they're finding new ways to make sure that we don't have illegal votes. So I do tend to agree with you, Tim, that the real issue is 2024 and not to relitigate 2020. But now it's like they want to criminalize talking about 2020. So, well, okay.
So that you don't raise questions in 2020.
Exactly. So now you're kind of like, well, gee, yeah.
Because the federal government put their finger on the election, it's totally not worth or it's not a legitimate election. Joe Biden is completely and totally illegitimate.
Nice.
Are the feds tuned into this right now?
Yeah.
You're going to be getting an indictment.
I don't care. That's true. The fact that 50 people that were involved in the security state, former CIA,
lied.
Yeah, they signed a paper and they lied. That's the federal government putting their finger on the election.
The censorship.
The federal government putting their finger on the election means the election is invalid because the federal government is not supposed to have an opinion on the election. So it's illegitimate, and Joe Biden is an illegitimate president, and I don't care how many people it pisses off.
The government also putting their finger on the balance scales with big tech.
Oh yeah, 100%.
To suppress the Hunter story.
100%.
That is such a great point, Phil, because forget about counting the votes.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just put out counting the votes for a second. Whatever, the vote Viagra for Biden in the 5 states where he goes straight up at 3:30 in the morning. We all watched it happen. Okay, forget about that. That's perfectly normal, just like McGuire and Sosa hitting 70 home runs in a season when nobody's ever done it before. No, that there was an anomaly there. So, but see, you just nailed it right there. Yeah. 51 intelligence agencies lying about the Biden laptop, lying about Donald Trump. The Russian collusion narrative, that was totally fake. The censorship on the internet that was driven by Democrat Party policy. To argue that is not at the very least election interference, to me, is just being dishonest.
If the federal government puts their finger on the election, if they stick their finger in, if they put their finger on the scales, that means that it's not a fair election. So the idea that it's the most free and fair election, it's a lie. It wasn't free and fair. The federal government stuck their nose in. The federal government is not supposed to have an opinion on who does or does not have the reins of power. It is the people that make that decision. So the fact that federal government put their finger on the scales means that it's illegitimate. It is totally illegitimate. And Joe Biden is an illegitimate president because of it. I don't care who it pisses off. This is true.
To quote Chuck Schumer, you mess around with the intelligence agencies
100%.
and they have 5 ways or Sunday of getting back at ya.
100%.
All right, we got Seth Weathers. Conservative Dad's Revenge is coming. Google it. Shout out, Seth. Thanks for the super chat, and we're excited for Conservative Dad's Revenge. I'll pull up a picture. We'll talk about it on the members only. But we also have Archie the Proto says, Tim, you got a Steam Deck. Congrats on becoming a Linux gamer. Most Windows game work on Linux now thanks to Valve, except those that require kernel-level anti-cheat. Your complaints about Wine a couple weeks ago are outdated. Yes, I stand corrected. I used to use Ubuntu for everything, but this was a long time ago. We would use Wine to run our Windows programs. But it has. So I got the Steam Deck. I went to the eye doctor, and I was getting new contacts. And as I was waiting, there was a GameStop next door, and I went in, and they had a Steam Deck, which is a handheld PC gaming device. It's awesome, and because PC can play basically all games with console command access, I was like, this sounds like a really good idea, and it's absolutely fantastic. I'm playing Baldur's Gate on it. And I'm probably just gonna play all my games on the Steam Deck. There's no reason for me to use anything else. It's amazing. The battery drains real quick. It is what it is. But I just plug it in, and then I think I might get like an hour of playtime.
It's like the original Game Boy. You didn't get much battery out of that one either.
I know, but now I'm playing like a 100 gigabyte AAA game. It's awesome. So the future is pretty rad. It's super light too. It's a bit big, but it works really well, and it's touchscreen too. I'm impressed with it, man. All right, what do we got? Tricky Hickey says, Owen, as someone who has done a couple years myself, whatever you do, don't eat the candy bar left on your bunk. That's not a housewarming gift.
Ew.
2 months will fly by. Good luck, brother, and keep fighting the good fight. Yikes.
Yeah, I'm still hoping that I do not get incarcerated. We're still fighting that in the courts through the appeal system. And I think anybody who's honest with themselves would say that that's not what I deserve.
Yeah.
Well, it's insane. Well, at first you were protesting in the Capitol or something. That's what it was, like 2019, I think it was.
So I was at and I mean, look, really, I think the reason why they hate me is because I go to their places and I say the truth. I mean, you want to talk about speaking truth to power? It's not Maxine Waters. It's Owen Shroyer. We both happen to be from St. Louis. But it was the 2019 impeachment of Donald Trump. And I stood up and I said, this is an illegitimate impeachment. Donald Trump is innocent. It was a 30-second transaction when the police grabbed me and escorted me out. I didn't fight them at all. And I mean, I don't know how deep you want to go into this, but usually with these cases, they will either just walk you out and that's that, especially if you don't fight and you're all by yourself. They'll just say, hey, you disrupted, and they'll just walk you out. They won't even bother charging you with anything. Or they may hit you with a charge. They won't detain you, and you'll either get the case tossed or you'll have a minor offense or whatever. Well, with me, it was the extreme. And the funny thing was when I was sitting there with the police officers, they were like expecting, hey, we're just going to walk you out the door and let you go. And then somebody got on their walkie-talkie, and they had to hold me, and they said, oh, wait a second, hold on a second. And somebody said, no, you're going to detain him. And then when I got arrested for having a piece of tape over my mouth at the Capitol that said censored, that's a real story, by the way. I got arrested in the U.S. Capitol for having a piece of tape over my mouth that said censored. Literally.
Crazy.
They even put it in the indictment. You can look it up for yourself. I'm telling you, it's crazy.
But so for this protest, they said just don't do it again, basically, like supervision and deferred prosecution.
Yes, and I don't know if you want to get into the depths of the documents here.
Well, maybe we'll get into more detail with the members only. My point is just what they're accusing you of doing now by being on restricted grounds is effectively the same thing. One warranted nothing, and one warrants 60 days in prison plus 2.5 years of supervision.
It's ridiculous.
Like 2.5 years of supervision is insane for being for the charge.
When it's all said and done, let's say this is how it goes. When it's all said and done, I'll have spent about 63 days in jail and about 6 years on probation.
Wow. It's crazy, man.
For real.
Well, if you haven't already, everybody, smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends if you do like it, and head over to timcast.com, click join us. The members only show will be live on the front page in a few minutes. Just click it and you can watch and hang out. And as a member, you can actually submit questions and call into the show and talk to us and our guests. It's going to be a lot of fun. So I hope to see you there. You can follow the show at Timcast IRL. You can follow me personally everywhere. Follow me on Instagram and X at Timcast. Monica, do you want to shout anything out?
Yeah, thank you so much, Tim. So find me at the Monica Crowley podcast, available on all podcast platforms. Check me out there. Also on Twitter and True Social at Monica Crowley, and on Instagram at Monica Crowley _.
Right on.
Well, if you want to listen to the federal government's favorite talk show, you can find me at band.video. I'm the host of the InfoWars War Room, 3 to 6 p.m. Central Time weekdays. Also, InfoWars Sunday Night Live, 6 to 8 p.m. Again at band.video. Find out why the federal government tunes into my show every day, and the proof is in their filing document.
Right on.
I am Phil That Remains on X. I'm Phil That Remains Official on Instagram. The band is all that remains. You can follow us on Spotify. You can follow us on Apple Music, on Pandora, on YouTube, on Amazon Music. You know, the internet.
I wish you the best with everything, my friend Owen. For real.
Thank you.
And yeah, check me out on the internet, guys. I might make a Friendster or MySpace just to like harken back to old times. I'm Serge.com.
We will see you all over at timcast.com in a couple of minutes. Thanks for hanging out.